Hey, ¿qué pasa, Calexico? Welcome back to the podcast. Like always, before we begin, I want to thank a couple of people. I want to thank my friend Sergio Armenta. Thank you for sponsoring the podcast. So I want to thank David Gastelum. If you're thinking of buying or selling a home in Imperial or San Diego counties, make sure you contact David Gastelum, 760-235-9576. He's not only a realtor, but an investor with over 20 years of experience. So, he'll help you with one of the most important investments in your life. So make sure you contact David. You can also find him on Facebook. Just search David Gastelum. Today's guest is a new member of this, podcast family industry, whatever you want to call it. Today's guest is Jesse Ruiz, who is the host of the podcast In Regards to Myself podcast. He just released his new episode, I guess this morning. Today is Saturday the 13th. Jesse, thank you for being here.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for inviting me. I'm super humbled, man, for reals.
Well, like always, before we, get into the meat and potatoes of the podcast, I like to have my guests, tell us a little bit about themselves. So I know you were born in San Diego. I mean, your Instagram profile says that you were born in San Diego, but you were raised here in the Imperial Valley. Can you tell us a little bit about, growing up in the Valley and, what you do now?
Yeah, so I'm 27. I'm actually a local fireman and a paramedic. Been doing that for probably like 4 or 5 years now. I'm an Imperial High School alumni. Shout out to the IHS. I did grow up some part of my life in San Diego. I moved around a lot. Most of my life, though, was spent here. But yeah, I just started this the idea of this podcast started 4 years ago, but I didn't follow through with it. I didn't put the work into it. It wasn't until recently during this there's like that good and bad side, right? The silver lining, so to speak. During this whole COVID, I sat down, alone with my thoughts, and I was like, man, I need to really put something together, because people were calling each other out, saying, oh, if this is the time to focus on the things on your passions, right? And honestly, for the last 4 years, I've been focused on work. So thankfully, though, I have a partner, and me and that partner, there's a couple of people though that definitely influenced in this happening. So I'm not in it alone. But yeah, thankfully to them, episode 1 dropped this morning. It didn't drop without, of course, hitting those hiccups. We had some hiccups that we faced because it was supposed to be released last night, and I apologize to everybody. But we did not realize that it would take that long to upload. And then there were several times where the upload froze completely. So, yeah.
Yeah. What is it like? Some of the things that, you're going to learn along the way about, podcasting. So your podcast is only going to be video, or is there an audio version of the podcast?
So there's going to be, we're always going to put up a video on YouTube, and we are going to put it on several platforms. I'm actually working with the distributor Buzzsprout. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them.
No.
It's a podcast hosting platform. So you pay a monthly subscription, and then it shoots it out there. Like it's going to put it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify. It doesn't put it on YouTube, but we're personally going to put it on YouTube for the video. But there will be an audio version on those other platforms, and iHeartRadio as well. We're going to be on a few for sure. But yeah.
So before we started, recording, we were talking about little things about how we got into podcasting and where we're at. Who were some of the people you listened to that kind of like inspired you to go into making a podcast of your own?
The first person definitely had to be Joe Rogan, and that seems kind of to be the main one for a lot of podcasters, because they listen to it and they're like, man, this is just cool ass conversation, right? It's just cool. And he's the first person to make it cool, right? Like everyone's already, podcasts had been going on. I mean, it's pretty much just very similar to radio. But they're starting to make a bigger, in our day and age now, it's starting to be a bigger thing. But definitely some of the people locally that I listened to was yourself, which I found you through the I8 Music podcast. You and I8 have been around for a couple years now. I mean, you guys, like I told you off the mic, you guys are the OGs in the game, and then you guys actually introduced me to Triple Scoop. Like I said earlier, you actually beat me to it. I was going to interview you as well, and hopefully the other two guys as well, and do that cross, like you said, that cross collaboration, cross promotion type of thing. Because I think it's very important, and I said this on my podcast. I think it's very important to pay homage to the people that have done the work already, and yes, in some ways, it could be a competition, but I feel like you could be in the middle. It doesn't. I don't necessarily look at you a competition, but the reality is, in a way, you are. But I don't look at it with a negative light in the sense, or I'm trying to take that guy out. No. Like you said to me earlier, off the mic, you're like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm here to help out anybody who's willing to do this. I'm open to anybody that's willing to come into this game. And I appreciate that. And I want to echo the same sentiment. Hopefully that I can, you guys inspired me, like I saw how serious you guys were taking. I mean, you're close to 100 episodes. Is over 100 episodes. You guys are consistent, right? And one of my biggest weaknesses has always been, sometimes I have these ideas and then I don't follow through with them.
Yeah, I think it happens to me too.
So, yeah.
No, and yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things that I've kind of learned along the way, and even the guy from I8
Omar.
No, not Omar. Tony Slums.
Yeah,
yeah.
Tony Slums.
When I spoke to him and I interviewed him, like it was probably one of the funnest interviews I've done, because it was kind of if I was talking to my shrink, because he was like throwing it back at me like, all right, so what do you want from your podcast, or who do you want to interview? Give me your list. Because I took my notebook and he's like, give me your list, and he went down my list and he's like, all right, you're gonna do this guy and you're gonna ask him right now, or like we were talking back and forth, and something that I learned from him was consistency and scheduling. You gotta, and I did it for a while. Like before COVID, I was like on point. Like every Thursday I was like releasing an episode, and I was promoting, and it was like I even had a couple on deck in case I didn't do a new one that week. So like he taught me a lot, like, and it's cool. Like I really appreciated that from him. So like, it kind of made me even more open to be like that with other people. Like in the sense that, if somebody is trying to start a podcast, I'm down, like, hey, you need pointers, here's what I do. This is how I do it. And at the same time, like, I feel that somebody with, fresher eyes can be like, you know what? Yeah, that's a good idea. But what if we change it a little bit here? Like, and that's something that when I was talking to Tony, like I was like, man, that's true. Like something that like when I look at the podcast that I listen to, it's a scheduling. Like I'm excited for Wednesdays. That's when Tiger Belly comes out. I'm excited for Fridays. That's when Dynamic Banter. Like I'm excited for the days that I know when my favorite podcast is going to drop. So yeah, something that is important when you're doing a podcast is consistency and schedule. Because that gets people like, gets it in their brain, like, oh yeah, this day, Jesse's podcast is going to drop. So I'm going to be, looking for it. So, but yeah, like, going back to the topic we were talking about, being able to, I think that, because I've been reached out by a lot of people that are trying to do either a podcast or some kind of video or something, and that kind of makes me feel good, because it makes me feel like people out there are really, even though sometimes I feel like people aren't watching or listening, kind of makes me feel that they are, like, how that speech, who was it, the girl that's like, you love me, you really love me, when she won the Oscar. Okay. That kind of like, that's kind of how I feel like, people are listening, they're tuning in, they see me as somebody that is, like you said, like one of the pioneers, or is one of the people who are putting out the content. And it makes me feel good. It makes me like I'm being helpful at the end of the day.
Bro, you only need one, you know, as long as it sounds corny, but as long as we can motivate one person, that really, like, you know what I mean? Like he said, that really all that matters, you know, even if 5 people are listening, maybe those 5 people, you know, get something out of it, and it ends up, you know, and they end up coming back to you and be like, you know what, bro, thank you. It was because of your episode that I listened to. You might not even know the person, right? You might not even know who they are. And then you'll be like, hey, bro, thank you. I appreciate that. It gave me an insight, you know, and I have to be real too with myself too, right? I have to understand, like, hey, not everybody's into podcasts. Like my wife's not even into podcasts. You know?
Yeah, my wife doesn't listen to my shit either.
so it is what it is, you know. Like you have to understand, you have to like know your limitations and be real. But you know, but like you said, put in the work. If you put in the work, somebody's gonna listen to it. You know, somebody's gonna resonate with it, and it doesn't really matter if we ever become famous or not. All that matters is that are we enjoying what we're doing? As corny as that sounds, but that really is something. Like this has really made me happy personally. So.
Yeah, and that's something that my wife tells me, like, you know, because sometimes I would be like, hey, you know what, I'm gonna be out on Thursday because I'm gonna do an interview, blah blah blah, and I'm like, I hope you don't mind. She's like, no, like, you know, I see that you enjoy this, you know, go ahead, you know, make your plans, you know, just as long as that it doesn't get, you know, carried away, but you know. I see how you enjoy, you know, doing all this stuff, and you know, I don't mind, and it's something that's healthy, you know, like you're not doing drugs or anything like that. But going back to being prepared, you know, we're talking about it off mic. You bought one of the books that I posted on Instagram. I'm reading another book. Some of the people that I've The Art of the Interview. Yeah. Some of the people that I listen to a lot and that I kind of like try to, you know, take stuff from what they do is, Sean Evans from Hot Ones.
Oh, he's like one of my that guy, bro. That guy is impressive, bro. The way he words the questions, the amount of the amount of time he spends like researching. Oh my God. Sorry to interrupt you, bro, but that guy's one of my idols too, bro, for sure.
The other person is Terry Gross from NPR.
Okay.
She does.
I need to listen. I haven't listened.
She does. I was listening.
Her. I'm sorry.
Yeah. She does. What's it called? I was actually listening to her last night. She was interviewing Judd Apatow and Davidson. Her show is called Fresh Air, and it's on NPR. Okay. But yeah, like growing up, I grew up watching David Letterman a lot. So like, you know, we're talking about preparedness. Like it's important because it kind of like tells your guests how, you know, you took him serious. You took him or her serious. And I was listening to your episode with I forgot his name.
Alfonso Higuereda.
Yeah. And yeah, like you could tell, like, you know, you did your work. Even some of the things that you were asking him he was like, oh shit, like, yeah, I didn't know you heard about that, or, but yeah, who are some of the people that, you know, when it comes to like interviewing style, like who do you kind of like look up to, or who do you trying to project?
Definitely, Sean Evans for sure. That if anybody, a lot of people actually watch Hot Ones, so they actually know who he is. That guy is the king, you know. And then obviously Joe Rogan for me, because like it almost seems like Joe Rogan doesn't even really have a script, you know. He's just able to converse just like free flowing, and that's a skill right there. Because when I first tried to do this years ago, I thought that's how you would do it, you know. I didn't like I said, I didn't put the research in, so I thought, oh, if I buy all the equipment, I could just have these conversations like nothing. And I realized pretty quickly in the first few episodes that no, we needed something to write down, but it wasn't like to the degree how it is now, where it's like legit now, where I actually write things. I have a little book and I write things down. Anything that you post or somebody posts that's pertaining on the subject that I want to, or the person that I want to interview, I look it up. You know, I look up all their stuff. But as far as like the art of the interview, I recommend for any, you know, somebody going into journalism or podcasting, of any kind. Jose, bro, you're the one that posted this, and I was like, oh, that looks like a good read, and it's an awesome read. It's actually one of my favorite books. But yeah, I mean, and then I just look at you guys, because you guys have been doing this for, more north of 50 episodes. Like that's dedication. That means that you guys truly enjoy doing this, and I want to put out the same kind of passion. And I hope that people see the passion. I hope that people continue to see what you saw, that I'm putting in the work, that it's, and I know you guys have too. And like I said, that's why I want to pay respects to you guys, because, I mean, you have to. It's about honoring those that came before you. So
yeah, and something that I wanted to mention about your podcast is that the production level is like on point, and I know you have a Jamie in your pocket, and what's your I don't know if he wants to be mentioned or not, but can you say his?
Oh yeah, he's totally down. And bro, you got to interview him at one point too. Like if you ever get a chance. And his, I'm going to shout out his media team, because it's him and 3 other individuals. They work together. 760 Media.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I heard it. I think of them on Instagram.
Yeah, they're really good. Any promo vids you want done. They work with a bunch of local artists here in the Valley, and then even outside up in LA. As far as Jamie, it's my homie. He's one of my best friends. I've known him since high school. We actually graduated together. His name is Carlos Peñales, and that's B, not with a P. Yeah, man. Without him, bro, he's like, honestly, I told him this is both of our babies, because this is his first solo project on his own. Like I said, he does work with 760 Media, so they've done other projects, other music videos. But this is his like own personal project, and this is obviously my own personal project. So I told him, like, this is equally ours, bro. Like, I mean, and I want to make sure that every time I get interviewed, or anytime I put things out, I'm giving the proper recognition to those that are helping me out, because that's important. Just like you start off every show by thanking all your sponsors, like that's what I want to do too. I want to pay it forward. I want to pay, like I said, if you look at my video, everything's credited to the people who helped me, starting from the song to the design. And there's even a special shout out in the audio version to a couple extra people. One in particularly, one of my friends who like right before the COVID, he's the one who actually told me, like, hey bro, like, stop being lazy, do it. And I was like, and I got kind of butthurt that he called me that, but I was like, it's true, I was being lazy. I mean, that's just plain it, Carlos
is your Jamie. Going back to your podcast, in regards to myself podcast, where does the name come from, or how do you come up with this name?
So one of my favorite bands, they had a song. It was in regards to myself, and it's like ... And then I remember. So like I told you earlier, I had started a podcast, but I didn't want to use the same name. I wanted to use something completely different. And it took me about 4 years to really find something. And I would always like get inspiration. I would always try to I would listen to songs, because every now and then, even though I wasn't doing the podcast, I would still have it in the back of my mind. Like, eventually I need to do this. I need to put it out. But I was like, but I don't have a name. And for a long time, I would always think about names. And then like one day the song came out, and I was like, I kind of like that. And I was like, but how do I make it where I'm not copywriting anybody, where I'm not. So I was just like, well, I'll just add podcast at the end. And I looked online, I looked on iTunes, and everything seemed to clear up. So I was like, okay. And then just the wording in regards to myself is just somebody saying, well, as it pertains to me, like, or this is my story. So that's like, in regards to myself, this happened, and that's how it came to be. And I just came up with it actually last year. Yeah, I think last year.
Yeah, because I mean, I think it's a really cool name, because if it's coming from the guests, it goes with with what you're trying to put out there on your podcast. Like, I think one of my favorite names for a podcast. I don't know if you've ever heard of Philip DeFranco.
I have not.
He's a YouTuber. He does like a news show. but he also started doing a podcast, and he calls his podcast is called A Conversation With, and then so that's and like for my podcast, that's basically what my goal is. I'm just having a conversation with whoever and I think that having a unique name is really key to people finding your podcast, because like if you tell them like, oh yeah, my podcast is called blah blah blah, like and if it's a really common name, they're gonna get a big list of that same podcast. So so on your I went to your Instagram profile, and it says that your goal is to tell your story. My goal, simply put, is putting the little person on the map. But does that, what's your main objective or your main goal when it comes to your podcast and your guests?
So the mission, there's a big scale and then there's a small scale, right? On the smaller scale and the more focused, it's going to be, primarily focusing on people of color, like especially brown people, those identify as Latinx or Hispanic or, indigenous, Native Americans. The reason being, this is on a small scale. The reason why I want to do that is because I want to show, like yourself, right? You're talented, right? You're doing something for the community, for yourself, but you're not doing it. It's not selfish, it's because you're actually dispersing information, which is important, especially in this day and age where, sometimes the information that we're getting isn't the most accurate, and you're getting it directly from the source. So I think that you deserve some recognition for that, brother. So on a small scale, it's focusing on us, the brown people. Why? Because I feel like I know if people say, oh, like you shouldn't see color, but the truth is we're always going to be brown. Like we're always, no matter what day and age we live in, we're always going to be brown people, right? And I feel like that we lack representation in a lot of things. Like I feel like when somebody thinks of a Hispanic or Latinx person, they think of somebody who works in the fields, somebody, or somebody who works in fast food, instead of thinking of somebody who's possibly a rapper, right? Or who's possibly into podcasting or whatever. Or like, for perfect example is Hollywood. I mean, there's no Latinx or Marvel superhero. And I feel like, dude, like when are we going to get our own? Like that I feel like we can identify better, like if there's somebody representing us, right? And again, the goal of my podcast isn't to prove that one color of people, one ethnicity of people is better than some other. It's not like that. I don't want that. I don't want that negativity. I just want us to be represented more. So on the bigger scale, I want like the people that come from a small community. So it doesn't matter if you're a brown person, if you're, if you're white, if you're black, if you're Asian, if you're Native American, if you're Arab, whatever, if you're gay or straight, it doesn't matter. Like, I want you on there, and because I want to tell your story. I want people to see your hustle. I want people to like see that just because we come from a small valley doesn't mean we lack any talent. We have some. And excuse my language, we have some badass people here. We need to shed light on those people, and I want to hear their stories. Like I want people to see that just because people are successful, it didn't mean that they didn't struggle to get there. So yeah, some people had it easier than others. It's life, and it's not fair. But like showing those that don't necessarily get the recognition that they might get, that's where. Everybody likes to talk about celebrities, right? If you watch Joe Rogan, it's like some celebrity after celebrity, or even they might not be famous in our community, but there's like famous doctors, famous scientists. But what about the average person, right? What about us? Like, it's great and all, like to meet somebody, a doctor, but like, why don't we meet a doctor from here? Why don't we talk to somebody from here?
Yeah.
And there's enough people in the valley and locally around surrounding areas that I feel like there's enough talent,
Yeah, for sure. Like that's how, a lot of people ask me, how do you get your guests? I'm like, well, I go to Instagram and, I see all the talent that we have here in the valley. And sometimes like, there's more people that I can interview. Like if you really look into it and you spend the time looking for, people who are hustling here in the valley, like you'll find them, and you'll find, loads of them. And yeah, I mean, like if that's kind of like my goal as well. Like, yeah, I might interview politicians or, city managers or whoever, but at the end of the day, like, I get a better satisfaction from interviewing that person that is not in politics or is not in, a high administration job. I like doing the politics and the administration because, I get to inform the community. But at the same time, I feel that like you said, like the little people, the people that are going under the radar but are hustling as harder or way more than the people that are already there. Those conversations make me feel a lot better than other ones, because I don't know, you just feel that you're helping. Yeah, and then you're kind of helping them in a sense.
For sure.
You mentioned on your Instagram, Proud Chicano. That's something that, like, for a while I've kind of like not struggled with, but kind of like I see that a lot of people are really, really, proud of calling themselves Chicanos, and sometimes I don't understand what a Chicano is, because I guess it comes more from how I was raised, since I was raised here in Calexico, but I spent a lot of time in Mexicali, and people from Mexico really don't use that Chicano word. They're just Mexicans.
Yeah.
Chicano is something that's more people who grew up in the States.
Right.
And can you tell me a little bit, what your definition or view of Chicano is?
All right. I actually really like this one. I like this question a lot. Okay. So to break it down, so I actually watched your interview with Ernesto Llerena, and he actually talks a little bit about Chicano and how he doesn't really use that term because, like, growing up, for him, Chicano had like a negative connotation. He identifies more as like a brown person, and so like I know that there's some hesitancy for certain groups of people that feel the same way like him. For me, so obviously I was born and raised in the U.S. I grew up in a household where my dad my mom is from Mexico. She's naturalized. My dad's Mexican American from the U.S. So I grew up in a household where my dad will always instilled in us from a very young age that, it's important to be proud of where you came from. It's important to be proud of your heritage. Obviously, I wasn't born in Mexico. I would rather live in the U.S. I'll answer all those, those typical things that people tell me. But so I am proud to be both. I'm proud that I live in the U.S. It sucks because right now it's such a tricky time in our history as a country. So, like, even by me saying that, like, people can misconstrue that and think that, I love, like, everything about our country. Our country isn't perfect, but then again, no country really is. So, but the certain things that we're like right now, we're allowed to have these conversations, because we live in a free country, right? Not everything is fair, right? There's definitely some really crazy and really gross injustices that happen in our country every day. Excuse me. And I am not ignoring those. Like, I'm all about speaking up against those kinds of things and voting against those kinds of things and donating to the right people. But at the end of the day, it comes down, to answer your question, my dad told me to be proud of being both, be proud to be an American, but be proud to be, Mexican too. And I feel that's something that, like, my generation is barely starting to understand, because I started to see more people starting to really embrace their Mexican heritage. But one of the arguments has always been like, well, like, you're not Mexican, dude. You're American. I'm like, that's true. I'm American with Mexican, of Mexican descent. And I feel like it's important to, like I said earlier, it's important to pay homage to our ancestors. I love the culture that I have. I love the food that we eat. I feel like our people are some of the hardest working people you'll ever meet. And earlier when, just because you're a farm worker, I do not take anything away from that. I couldn't do that, bro. I could not go 8 hours a day picking, fruit. Like, and dude, I worked in retail and in fast food, and dude, that was humbling. Fast food was a humbling experience working there, but I'm proud to be I'm proud to be both. I'm proud that I'm happy that I live on this side and I don't live in Mexico, because it's, some things are worse over there than they are here. But yeah, when I say proud Chicano, it just means that I'm a proud Mexican American kid. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, because, the people, because I also spoke to Carla Cordero. I don't know if you saw that one. I haven't. She's a poet from here, from Calexico, but, now lives in San Diego, and she's a professor in San Diego, and she's really young. Like you see her and like you're like, what? She's a professor, but she's really smart. She's really proud to be Chicana, and all these other, because like Latinx and all these things that sometimes like even I like don't really like I get lost in because at the end of the day, like I feel like I don't know, like I struggle to like kind of like put a label on myself. I don't know, like you said, like, yeah, I'm American, and my parents weren't really like, oh, you're an American. No, like we were just like here, like living our lives, and we, I'm really grateful that I got to experience both life here in the United States and in Mexico and Mexicali. I like you said, like I love my culture. I think we have one of the cultures with some amazing stories, the Aztecs and all these things that they came up with, like the calendar, like it was an amazing group of people that eventually got slaughtered and whatnot, and yeah, like I don't know, like I just, especially nowadays, it's kind of hard to like kind of put a label on something or on somebody.
Yeah. And I think that's okay. Like, I think it's okay if you don't, I don't feel like it's 100% necessary to identify as like Chicano or Latinx or Hispanic. That's why I really liked what Ernesto said, like brown, I feel like that's a little bit easier to identify as a brown person. But just to finish it, it doesn't matter. Like I said, it's really hard. Like if you didn't, obviously you grew up closer to Mexico than I did, so you probably can relate more with the Mexican side than I can. But I, like I said, I'm just proud of my culture. I'm proud of where my parents came from, where my ancestors come from. Obviously, you see my Instagram name is Aztec Warrior. You don't know how many people have made fun of me because of that. I get at work, they always give me a hard time because like, dude, you're not Mexican, and I'm like, nah, bro, I'm freaking Mexican American, or you know what I mean? Like, they just do it to give me a hard time. But.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things that I guess why I kind of struggle with it is because I do try to understand, the injustices like our people, and everybody. I think every minority has had their struggles, right?
Right.
But like just like talking about Hispanics or Mexican, because even Hispanics in a way is kind of like hard to really pinpoint. Like, okay, you say Hispanics, but are you talking about Puerto Ricans, Cubans? Like, yeah. But like even for Mexicans, the struggles that we faced, the Cesar Chavez movement and all these things that, you know, even now we still face a lot of struggles. That's why I struggle, because I do see like all these things that happen, and how the people that are passionate about the Chicano movement and all these things, why they are as passionate as they are. But since I kind of grew up like here and there, like, and in Mexico, like they really don't talk about the Chicano movement because they really didn't live it. And even in Mexico, like Mexicali, or like here in the border, they don't talk about their history as much. But if you go down south, they do talk about it. So like that's what, like, I don't know. I think it's harder when you grew up here and there, because like you're like you don't know which way to lean on, you know?
Well, yeah, it's like they say, right? If you're Mexican American, you're not Mexican enough in Mexico, and then you're on this way, you're not American enough in America.
Yeah.
I've heard. Was it Selena? The movie Selena. They said that. They're like,
and yeah, and I guess like because like I don't want to like feel like I'm this fake Chicano, like go into this movement and all that, and really not you know, have people think like, oh no, he's a fake Chicano. And even like if I'm if I try to lean more towards like the Mexican side of the culture, like the way they grew up in Mexicali, like, yeah, like I'm not gonna be part of them either. So like, but yeah, you know, we got sidetracked from, yeah,
it's all good, bro. This is podcasting, right?
Yeah. But what is something that you would like your listeners to get out of from your podcast?
Much like yourself, it's just like me putting out like the information. You know, me showing, like I said like earlier, right? I think it's important for like when I took a business class this last year. I didn't finish it because of the whole COVID, but you know, I remember the first couple of weeks of it, and I was learning some amazing things. And I remember thinking like, man, like it's how can I put this? Like it's important to understand your market, right? Because when somebody watches our show or listens to our show, they're thinking, they're going to think a couple things, but the most important thing is like, what am I going to get out of this? What am I going to get out of listening to this? Out of listening to an hour, possibly, I don't know, 3 hours, right? It's got to catch that attention. Like, so the whole point with like Alfonso, it's showing his talent, right? It's showing who he is. It's showing what he could do, but it's also giving a little bit of insight on his story that might relate to somebody. Maybe somebody experienced a similar experience that he experienced, right? And they're like, oh, and it resonated with them. And they're like, oh man, I like that. That was interesting. That's how you get listeners, right? I know there's technology, right? We can put hashtags, we can put thumbnails, we can do all these things to help drive customers our way. But if you're not being authentic, if you're not being genuine, if you know, then they're going to be able to tell, and it's just not going to, you know, your product's going to suffer. And so I think it's important, like when people come on here, maybe they don't get a tattoo, but maybe they get an insight, like you said, right? Like on how they grew up, like how you said you grew up with one foot in this country, one foot in that country, and how it kind of shaped your thought process. And that's important, right? Well, if we're trying to understand other people, it's important to understand where they came from, how they grew up, they're, you know, and in a respectful way, in a way that's cathartic, right? In a way that's like almost like therapy. Like you said, when you were talking to Tony Slums, you said, oh dude, that was like therapy, because it was weird because I was in the opposite seat, right? This is my first. So it's like, it's cool to talk about this kind of stuff. I feel like that. I feel like, damn, dude, this does feel good, like being on this end. But I don't want to get used to being on this end. I want to be like on the other end. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's, I mean, there's you know, there's every so often I think you should be on the other end, because you get that perspective of, you know, how the people you're talking to, you know, feel, and you know, you get that other process, the other mental process of, you know, trying to answer the questions instead of asking the questions. So you were talking about the production level and editing and all this stuff. So most of your stuff is being done by your friend, is it Carlos?
Carlos, yeah, and the 760 Media team. So anytime we have any hiccups, we always refer back to 760 Media because we have their main guy, Johnny. His name's Johnny Keys, Jonte Murillo. He's a producer and an engineer himself. He's the brainchild of that whole thing. So it's him, his brother Carlos, and then they have a cousin, Jeanette Marin, and she does design and clothing and design. And their younger brother's name is Chris, also Chris Murillo, young Chris. I think he also raps. But yeah, it's all a collective team. But when we do most of the edits, most of the chop ups, like all the camera angles, it's all been pretty much Carlos on his own. Like I said, I wouldn't be here without Carlos. So I think it's super important. And then like all the other people that have helped me, like the song, it was donated by a local artist who doesn't live here. He lives in Seattle, but he's from the Valley. He does lo-fi music, and his name is Gabriel Delgado, and his Instagram name is Sleepover. And then he's the one who did the intro for the song and the outro for the video. And then the logo was designed by Abraham Urias, and he's actually from Mexicali. Right now, I think he lives in Rosarito though. But he's the one, like I told him, I was like, dude, I'm thinking about doing an American flag. I'm thinking about doing a Mexican flag, and like with the mic. And then like he's like, all right, give me a couple days. And then a couple days later, he's like, are you married to the flags? And I was like, you know what, bro? Like, throw me an idea and I'll say yes or no. And he shot the idea with the eagles, and I was like, and then one's a bald eagle and one's the Mexican eagle, and I was like, dude, that's kind of subtle and it works, and I like the colors, and I was like, let's do it.
No worries. No worries. Yeah, you can cuss. I don't care. Okay. But I mean, everything from I think you did it in the right way, because like when I started doing this, like I didn't even have a logo. Like my logo, shout out to Eddie Lopez. He, like, I put something on, I think it was Instagram or Facebook, like, hey, anybody out there that wants to, like, create me a logo, I can't pay you, but I really appreciate it. And he, a couple of days later shot me an email and had my logo. But yeah, like yours was like, even like the little teasers you had, and the production is like I've been telling you, like it's on point, and I mean, like to me, like it kind of shows me that you really plan this out. You're taking this serious, and yeah, like I know that. And after listening to your first episode, not only is the production on point, but even the conversation, it was really interesting. Like I said, I really learned a lot
appreciate that, bro.
I learned a lot from the tattoo artist you had. Somebody that I've been thinking of getting one, and like I kind of like now have somewhere to turn, and kind of like, especially like local. When everybody like nowadays is, we should be supporting our local businesses. Hopefully when everything opens back up, hopefully I'll swing by and talk to him. But yeah, is there a sweet spot to how long you want your podcast to go? Or
yeah, they're actually, initially, bro, I was actually going for 45 minutes to an hour, but damn, it's so hard sometimes. And I'm sure you understand that. I was like, God damn it, like I went over, but you know what, like sometimes you just have to let it keep going.
Yeah.
I for sure right now, my sweet spot is 1 hour 15 minutes to 1 hour 20 minutes. I do not want to go over that, and I'm gonna really do my best to stick by that. Later on, I'm gonna try to condense it like an hour, 45 to an hour 10, but definitely no more than an hour 20, because I think after that people lose interest. It's even myself, dude. Like sometimes when I watch podcasts, I watch it in clips. I'll watch it for like 30 minutes, stop watching it. I'm doing something later on, and then I'm watching it again. So,
do you prefer to watch podcasts or listen to them?
I actually, so it's funny because like I actually don't really listen to a lot of podcasts. I only have like a little bit of, but if I actually prefer watching it just because I know like the amount of time that it takes to do it. So like I think it's like I don't know. I like that part of it. I like the whole. I like seeing like the mics. I mean the headphones. I like seeing the mics in the room, and I like and but like it doesn't really matter because I've listened to some like just strictly audio, but I like seeing facial reactions. I like people to see the authenticity of it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and for a while I wasn't uploading my videos to YouTube. I was only doing the audio, just because it takes a little bit longer to edit and render and upload.
Dude, oh my gosh, I learned about rendering. Oh my god, bro.
Yeah, and then you find a little mistake, and then oh crap, you have to like cut it again and then render it again. It's like dang.
It takes work, bro.
So that's why I wasn't doing it, or I was waiting like a couple of weeks before I uploaded that specific episode. But I got a lot of people like saying like, hey, upload the video. I'm more of a video guy. I'm like, really? Like, because to me, like a podcast is, I listen more to podcasts than I watch them, because I'm doing some yard work and I'm listening to it, or I'm doing stuff around the house and I'm listening to it. And even when I used to live in Imperial and commute to Calexico, I would always listen to, back then I wasn't listening to podcasts, but I would listen to NPR a lot, like talk radio.
Talk radio, yeah.
And yeah, like to me, like I think I prefer listening more than I do watching.
I think though you're like a true podcaster, like those that are truly into podcasts, they listen for sure. Because like several of my coworkers are like, hey, they're like, is it gonna be on like Spotify? They asked me all the platforms that are just audio, and they're like, is it gonna be on there? Because I like to listen to podcasts on the way to work, or because sometimes like for my work, sometimes we can travel any upwards from like 10 to 15 minutes all the way up to like an hour 15, because we have stations in Salton City and we have stations in Palo Verde and in Winter Haven. So, there's drives. But so I've noticed that the more people that are truly, truly into it, yeah, you guys definitely listen to it more audio. And I notice those people that aren't really like that into it, but they want to see what it's about. That's what they want, right? They want to see something. They want to see, oh, what is it about?
Yeah.
But like, I like Rogan, I like how he does both. I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a lot of people here in the Valley that listen to podcasts, or? Sure.
I feel like there are, but I feel like there's like niches, like I feel like people only listen to certain podcasts, and it's like I don't know. I feel it's not like the biggest community of podcast listeners here, but I think it definitely deserves a little bit more credit, because I've realized that a lot of people are like, oh yeah, dude, I listen to Spotify, I listen to podcasts there. Like, what? I didn't even know idea you listened to them there. Or I didn't even know you listen to podcasts in general. But I've had a couple of friends that surprised me for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think nowadays, especially with the pandemic, I think there's more people who are doing podcasts, especially more celebrities. Even, I like since the pandemic happened, I feel that, more people, especially more celebrities, are going to have a little bit more respect to content creators, because a lot of the talk show hosts are having to do their show from home, and their audio is horrible. And all these people that have been doing YouTube videos or podcasting for a long time, like they have all this like really nice crisp audio and video. So like now they're kind of like reaching out to them, like saying like, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? So I feel like now, because of this, people are going to have a little bit more respect to the people that have invested so many years on YouTube or on, podcasting. But yeah, like going back to the podcast, I think there's a lot of more, like I've been seeing a lot of new celebrities like, oh yeah, I started my own podcast. And it's because, they can't really go out. So they've been doing like this, maybe Zoom or maybe like face to face. But yeah, I feel like the people that do listen to podcasts, that are new listeners to podcasts, is because they heard that their favorite celebrity was doing a podcast, so they started listening to it. But yeah, like I think like the more OG podcast listeners are listening to more informational stuff. I'm actually listening to a new podcast called, it's not new, it's fairly new. Have you ever heard that Scorpion song called "Wind of Change"?
I have not.
It has like a whistle.
I mean, possibly, bro, but
So
I don't know.
Probably if you hear like you'd be like, oh, okay, yeah. So
probably.
So the podcast is about how that song was created by the CIA so that people in Russia would kind of like go against the government. Like it's a really like.
Oh, all right.
So like I listened to more of those podcasts because kind of like I feel like the podcast that kind of like broke through, that kind of like made people more aware of podcasting, was Serial. I don't know if you ever heard of that podcast, Serial.
Oh, no, I haven't. I'm still new, bro. I'm still learning myself. Like I said, I was kind of being, like I told you in the beginning, I didn't really listen to them. I only listened to like 2 or 3. Now I'm barely starting to really like, trying to shift my attention like to yours, to I8s, and like, you know what I mean? Like I'm really trying to expand my palette.
Yeah.
Because you need to, you know, that's how you get better.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, for sure. So we're almost at an hour. Is there anything that I didn't, ask you or talk about that you would like to add up?
Oh, the only one thing I want to say, bro, is that I followed all county recommendations for every person, for the 2 people that I've interviewed. They didn't want to wear the mask, so I didn't force them. But there was literally only 3 of us in here, and everything was disinfected. Everything was followed according to protocol, and they were literally in and out here, like, as soon as we were done with the interview. But no, man, I really, like I said, I really want to thank you, man. I appreciate the opportunity to come on here. I'm a fan of your show.
Thank you.
Keep doing it, man. Like I said, dude, consistency. You guys are the models of consistency. Like hopefully I can make up to 15 episodes, right? But hopefully I can get to where you're at and almost hit 100. But I'm really humbled, man. Like, I'm going to do my best too, bro, to like shout you guys out. That's what it's about, right? At the end of the day, we're all just trying to, rise together. And that's what, that one of my buddies, he's always saying that. And I truly believe that as well. So, but I'm good, bro. I mean, again, thank you.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. And like you said, like, I think it's important that we help each other out. We grow this community of podcast listeners that, there really isn't many here in the Valley. And I feel that the information that we're putting out there, like you or even even though they're a little bit more into the music scene, they're also like promoting, these local artists that maybe we don't know about. And it's, at the end of the day, is it's more about community. We're building our community up, we're helping everybody out, and I guess something that it's free promotion, and we're not getting paid for this. Is something that we do as a hobby, and we love it, and again, something that it's. Especially this last episode I uploaded, somebody made a bad comment. I'm like, it's kind of later to get to me, but at the end of the day, I'm like, you know what, dude, just let it go. And it's something that I kind of wanted to talk to you about. Is like, you're gonna get bad comments or whatever, and don't let it get to you, because at the end of the day, it's something that you're doing for free. It's something that you're doing, positive for the community. Maybe somebody out there is not going to like it, and who cares, as long as you feel like you're doing something positive for the person that's with you, that you're interviewing, and for the community. And I know that, from what I've seen, from what I've heard from you, I know that whatever you do is because you feel is right, and it's going to help the community out. And if you got a bad comment, just let it slide off. It's hard. I think it's super hard. I've been lately I've been really struggling with, because at the end of the day, like, when you're doing this, you're kind of like a public figure, even though like it might sound like a little bit corny, but you are, because you're putting, stuff out there so that public can listen and watch it. And
it's attached to you're putting your face out there.
Yeah.
And now people are like you said, people are going to know, oh, this guy when they see you in the street, like, oh, this guy thinks this way or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I just to add on really quick, I'm not trying to interrupt or anything. Dude, I mean, it's great advice, and I will, I'm gonna try to do my best to like apply it, because there is gonna come a day, like you said, when I'm not gonna like what somebody says, but you know what, like people say, right? People are just haters, bro. They're just hating because you're doing something that you love, and they just want to, they just want to shit on your world just because you're happy about something. I know this isn't going to be for everybody. That's okay. As long as like we were talking about earlier, as long as I can hit like, I don't know, like 20, 30 people, I'll be happy with that. I think if I put in the work, I think I can do it, but I gotta put in the work like you guys have put in the work, and that's important. So
yeah, and sometimes I think there's been some times where I don't agree with what my guest is saying,
for sure,
but I feel that sometimes you gotta give everybody the benefit of the doubt, and at the end of the day, they should know that they're on record saying whatever they're saying.
Yeah.
So, and it's not, and like to me, it's not. I'm not doing it so like, putting anybody in the spot. I really try not to. I try to be unbiased. I try to be, whenever I talk to an interview, I try to be as stay out of like the chismes and all this, like
as neutral as possible.
Yeah, and that's something that like the biggest struggle is that like kind of like staying neutral, and making sure that you're not even though like I might be leaning towards this way, like try to like stay in the lane, and that's something that you'll find along the way that it's really hard, especially here in the valley. Like we're such a small valley. We live in small towns where you might know somebody that doesn't agree with whoever you interviewed, and it's gonna want to give you a little bit of crap about it. But at the end of the day, like I feel like we need to, if you're gonna be in this business about informing the community, we gotta give everybody the chance, and at the end of the day, the truth is gonna be gonna come out, and people are gonna see the people for what they really are. So, but yeah, I mean, I want to end it with that. I want to thank you again for being on. I want to wish you luck. I know you don't need the luck because you got this, dude. Like I said, like it's I can tell you put in the work, and it really shows off on your first episode. I want to invite everybody to check out his Instagram. It's in regards to my podcast, in regards to myself podcast. Go check it out. There's a link there for the new episode. And yeah, thank you guys for listening. I forgot in the beginning to thank all the first responders, everybody out there in the front lines, nurses, police officers, firemen, people stocking our supermarkets. I know we're here in the valley, we're at in a hard place. We have a lot of cases. I feel that people need to take this a little bit more serious. It's kind of crazy when I look at people's I'm not gonna personally put people out there, like name names, but it's crazy when you see people's Facebooks and Instagrams, and they're getting together for graduation parties and whatnot, and I'm here at home. I've been at home for like 3 months, and I haven't seen people like in a long time, and you see the numbers, and you see how the hospitals are struggling to keep up with patients and whatnot. And you see the death numbers going up like weekly, and yeah, I think we need to take a little bit more serious. I know it's hard. I know we're used to not, this life that we're living, but it's a reality, and we just gotta take it serious so that things can get to somewhat normal sooner. And at the same time, our local businesses can't even open because our numbers keep going up, and they're really struggling. They're really, their business is a lifeline, and they need to open. So we need to take it serious so that we can help them as well reopen and, get their livelihood back to normal somewhat. as much as they can. But yeah, please be safe. Wash your hands. Wear your face mask. We'll get over this together if we, work at it. But Jesse, thank you once again.
Thanks, bro.
Make sure to tune into his podcast, In Regards to Myself podcast. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.